All right, everybody. Nice job on that first section. Now we're taking a look at mini lesson numero dos. So this is all about the algorithm, that sweet trick I was talking about. So here we're talking about adding negative numbers if they're both negative, or adding a negative number plus a positive number. Those are the two instances that we're going to be dealing with. So first off, let's take a look at if both the numbers are negative. What's the trick here? Well, to be honest with you, there really isn't a trick. If I have, say, -6 and I'm adding -2, well, then I would just add these numbers together like I normally would. 6 plus 2, I would get 8. But since these are both negative numbers, my answer is going to be negative, right? Just think if I owe somebody $6 and then I owe them $2 more, then I owe them a total of $8. So add the numbers before like you've always done and then keep the sign. But this is where things get a little tricky if the numbers are different in signs. So maybe one is negative and the other one is positive. So we're looking at the right-hand side of the screen, and it says different sign, -a plus +b. I like to assign values here, so I'm going to do the same thing as before. And I'm going to do -6 for my negative number, and I'm going to add it to +2. And so it says determine the absolute value of each number. Now we take a look at what absolute value means. Remember, that's going to be the distance that the number is from 0. So if we're looking at -6, how far is -6 from 0? 6 places, right? What about +2? How many places is that from 0 on the number line? That's also just 2 places away. So here, if the absolute values of -6 and +2 are 6 and 2, we're going to next determine which number has the biggest absolute value. In other words, which number is bigger, 6 or 2? Well, that's easy, right? 6 is going to be bigger than 2. That's what I have more of in the equation. And so my third step now is to subtract these two numbers. I'm going to do 6 minus 2. Not going to worry about the sign right now, and that's going to give me 4. But now here's where the absolute value comes into play. I'm going to go back to those two numbers I had. 6 and 2. I said that 6 is bigger, and so I need to pay attention to the sign of my 6. In this case, it's a -6. Therefore, my answer is going to be negative. So it's going to be -4 as my final answer. And that makes sense, right? Think about if we drew a number line here. I started at 0, and let's say I took 6 steps backwards. I'm going -6. So here I am at -6. And now I take 2 steps going forward. I'm still going to be in the negative. I'm just going to be at -4 now. So one way of utilizing this algorithm here is not having to draw that number line, and instead just looking at which number is greater in terms of absolute value, subtracting the two numbers or finding the difference between them, and then taking the sign of the larger number. So in this case, 6 is larger than 2, so I take the sign of 6, which is negative, and that's how I got -4. So let's go ahead and put this to the test. Here we have problem number 1, 8 plus -5. All right, so right here I'm taking a look at, do I have both positives or both negatives? And in this case, I have one positive and one negative. So I know I'm going to need to subtract 8 minus 5. I need to find the difference here. 8 minus 5 gives me 3. And now I need to do that final step of looking at which number is bigger, 8 or 5. Well, 8 is bigger here, and the sign for 8 is positive. So my answer is going to stay positive. All right, now let's take a look at problem 2. This time around, we have two negative numbers. So it's like we lose 7 yards on the first play, and then we lose another 6 yards on the second play. So we just keep going backwards. It's not good news. So if we add them together like we normally would, we would get 13, but we lost 13 yards, so it's negative 13. And now we'll move on to problem 3. Here we see negative 9 and positive 18. So again, we see a negative number plus a positive number. So right away, I know that I'm going to want to find the difference. So I could do 18 minus 9 to get my difference. 18 minus 9 gives me 9, but I'm not done yet. I still have that final step. Looking at the absolute value of negative 9, that would be 9. And the absolute value of 18, that'd be 18. Obviously, 18 is bigger than 9, so I'm paying attention to the sign of 18. Since it's positive, my answer is going to stay positive. All right, take a look at problems 4 and 5. See if we can figure out what we're going to get for a final answer here. Again, pay attention to how many negatives and how many positives you have in each of the problems. All right, did you get the same answers as I did? Again, if we look at problem 5, we end up with negative 13 because between 17 and 4, 17 is going to be the larger number. So we're going to take the sign of 17, which is negative. All right, so now you're going to be working through workshop 2 here. We're going to determine if the following problems have a final answer that is negative or positive. So here you're not even finding an answer. You're just taking a look at, okay, if I have two negatives here, is my answer going to be positive or negative? Or if I have a negative or a positive, what's that quick trick to figure out whether my final answer is going to be negative or positive? You can do the same thing here for problem B using that algorithm. And then as you drop down here to the real world problems, we're looking again at, let's say, problem 2. It says on the first play, the Knights football team gained 17 yards. So if I were to show a gain of 17 yards, how would I write that to start off my equation? Go ahead and use a positive 17. And then it says in the second play, a loss of 12 yards. So how would I show a loss of 12 yards in an addition equation? So again, I typically would just say minus 12 yards. But here, if I need to write as an addition equation, I have to throw in my addition sign. And then I'm going to separate that negative 12 by using parentheses. And then I'm going to find my total change. So what would that equal? You're going to finish up the rest of the problems for parts B, and then you're going to look at part C here. This time you're finding the missing value. So in other words, if my equation is negative 2 plus a number to get 0, what would that number be? And then if we look at 5 plus what number would give me negative 1? All right, so you're going to fill out the rest of these for problem C.